This weekend, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Eric Smith, suffered an apparent heart attack, according to reporting from the New York Times. The Senate only confirmed Smith for that job last month, I should say, but he's actually been doing two jobs for months, his new one and the old one, because his would-be deputy hasn't been confirmed. And that is because Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama is blocking the Senate from what are usually perfunctory votes of grouped nominations of hundreds of general and flag officers across the military.
The Commandant of the Marine Corps had a heart attack while running outside the 8th and I barracks in Washington, D.C. Just running, he dropped to the ground with a heart attack, is still in the hospital, and they're saying his condition is stable. Now, what's significant about that? He literally just said 2 weeks ago that the job, doing two jobs at once, both commandant and assistant commandant, is exhausting. He gets up at 5:30 a.m. and he shuts his computer down at 11:30. He doesn't see his family. He's doing both jobs. I'm Fred Wellman with the MeidasTouch Network, host of On Democracy with FP Wellman. I am also a 22-year Army veteran. And this is an important issue, and I know it's nuanced, and I know it's confusing because there's these Senate rules, and there's promotions, and there's a lot of bullshit being slung out there about how significant this is. And let me tell you, folks, I served the highest ranks of our military. I was a spokesman and an aide to multiple 2 and 3 and 4-star generals. I served in the Pentagon in my last job. This is deadly for U.S. military readiness, not just today, but for decades to come. And in this video, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how serious this is. And I urge you to just watch this and bear with me and take action. This is important as we face crisis after crisis worldwide. Let's watch the rest of the CNN clip and understand a little bit about what's going on.
He's doing it because he opposes the Pentagon's abortion travel policy, a policy, by the way, that these generals and admirals had nothing to do with adopting because that's the purview of civilian leaders of the military. Now, to be clear, we have no way of knowing that the stress of these demands contributed to General Smith's health emergency, but safe to say it did not help. Smith himself telling the Marine Corps Times last month, quote, "It is not a sustainable thing when the last thing you do is flip your computer off at 11:30 at night and you're getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning." General Smith is now receiving care, according to the Marine Corps, as they scramble to fill the void. Because, as I mentioned, Smith does not have a confirmed deputy. The Senate hasn't confirmed an assistant commandant of the Marine Corps, hat tip Tommy Tuberville. The senior-most general at Marine Corps HQ, Lieutenant General Karsten Heckel, is now filling in for Smith. And Heckel was already doing two jobs because, yet again, Tommy Tuberville's holds, according to military.com. So now General Heckel's responsible for what, 4 jobs? The whole affair actually so confusing that the Marine Corps announced that Heckel would be acting commandant and then had to correct itself and say that Heckel would just be performing the duties of the commandant. That is not a flex of military strength at a time when the U.S. is trying to stop the war between Israel and Hamas from ballooning into a broader conflict in the Middle East.
That's right. They don't have an assistant commandant, so they're bringing a random 3-star, the next guy in line, to serve, to lead the entire United States Marine Corps. And you're going to hear a lot of lies from Tommy Tuberville. These guys are just advisors. That is so wrong, and it's lies. As we speak, as you're watching this video, 2 aircraft carrier groups from the 7th Fleet are sailing in the Mediterranean without a commander of the fleet. It doesn't matter if he's acting. It makes a difference. If he's acting, it means he still has his old job. That's what happened to General Smith. He still has his old job because he's the acting assistant commandant because there's no one to take his place. That's what Tommy Tuberville's done. So what's happening? Well, right now, as of last night, they spent 4.5 hours, 4.5 hours on the Senate floor, led by Lindsey Graham, Sullivan, and Ernst, all Republican senators. They brought to the floor 61 of these nominations for general, read the biography of each one, and then called for unanimous consent for that individual one. Tommy Tuberville stood up and objected every single time. Even though he said he wanted to go to a vote. And we're going to explain a little bit about that vote. But the key for you to remember is he wants them to go to a regular order vote. A regular order vote takes 2 to 3 days. So don't believe for 1 second he's telling the truth in the clips you'll see coming up. So what happened last night? His own colleagues turned on him. And here's a really great, this is Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham, who I'm not sure much I agree on with Lindsey Graham anymore, but this is Lindsey Graham absolutely going off on his own colleague.
Issued a legal opinion I disagree with, saying this doesn't violate the Hyde Amendment. I disagree with it. Here's what's going to happen. You've just denied this lady a promotion. You did that. All of us are ready to promote her because she deserves to be promoted. She had nothing to do with this policy. Let me say it again. Everybody in this body could find an issue with any administration they don't agree with. And what we're going to do is open up Pandora's box. Today is abortion policy. If we take back the White House, we'll go back to the Mexico City policy, limiting dollars to be given to overseas entities that are engaged in the abortion business. Some pro-choice people don't like that. What would happen if they put a hold on all the officers because they don't agree with the Republican administration? There's a reason this has not been done this way for a couple hundred years. No matter where you believe it or not, Senator Tuberville, this is doing great damage to our military. I don't say that lightly. I've been trying to work with you for 9 months. Folks, if this keeps going, people are going to leave. Let me tell you how the system works. You have 18 months, I think, from the time you're promoted to pin on. And if you don't make that gate, your time and grade up or out rule kicks in. There's some people that are waiting to be promoted that if they don't get promoted soon, they're going to be out of the military. Now, how does that help anybody if they're qualified? There's not one senator in here that could not find a reason to object to an administration policy.
Right. There's always going to be excuses to object to a policy. But the process for your United States Senator, one of 100 of them, is to field a bill, is to find co-sponsors, is to change the policy. We can't keep saying it enough. Tommy Tuberville is lazy and stupid. This is the easiest, most low-hanging fruit thing he can do. Hold. Doesn't have to write a law. Doesn't have to convince a majority. He's whining that they can't do that, though, because they're in the minority. And that's our system. That's the whole point of the system. You're right, Tommy. You're in the minority. You lost. And so you're going to have a hard time passing that bill. Maybe you could find somebody to pass with you. That doesn't mean you get to hold the entire United States military hostage. These people have nothing to do with that policy. And what is the policy? Let's talk about that real quick. The policy is a simple one. It's simply travel. They're not paying for abortions. Lindsey Graham's wrong. It does not violate the Hyde Amendment. The United States military is not paying for an abortion. The change is simple. They pay for the travel. Because in many states where our service members are stationed now and their families, abortion is illegal and a lot of reproductive health care is illegal. And because everyone deserves reproductive freedom and choice, even if they're being forced to serve in a state against their will because of the military said, we will pay for your travel. Service members still have to pay for the procedure, but they will pay for the travel. That's it. That's what he's mad about. Instead of doing his job, he's decided to hold hostage the entire United States military. So here's him this morning, or just a little bit ago, talking to the media in the hallway in the Capitol.
Your Republican colleagues who say you're weakening the military.
Oh, really? Well, that's their opinion.
Are you at risk of weakening the military?
No. As I've told you all along, if I thought there was any problem with readiness, we wouldn't be doing this. All jobs are filled. People are doing their jobs. This will be over one day. I don't know when. That was kind of interesting for me last night. But
those were some biting criticisms you got last night.
Yeah, it was a little character assassination at times. But you got to remember what I did for a living for a long time. So I'm used to that. But we got to get all on the same page on this, and I think we will. It's just we went through something last night that, that's 17th time. 16 of them were Democrats, now one Republican. But we'll work through it.
So has any of this caused you to change your approach?
No.
So you're not going to drop your holds no matter what?
No.
I mean,
Not no matter what. And, we get some resolution from the SecDef and the president. First of all, we don't even know what the policy is. They won't give it to us. We went through a briefing, and we got no definition of really what they changed it to. So they're kind of shooting from the hip. We need to sit down, talk about the policy, see if there's anything that we can agree on and get on with life.
But you heard each of these senators say one by one that these people, these military personnel, have nothing to do with the policy.
They don't have any.
So why hold them up?
But it's the only way I can get their attention. And I've told you all along, I hate to have to do this. But somebody has got to listen to us, okay? I work for the people of this country, okay? I don't work for another senator or president. I work for the taxpayers of this country. We polled everybody. 60% of Democrats and Republicans do not want to pay for abortion. They don't want their money to go to it. So this is not just a Republican issue. This is a taxpayer issue. So I'm standing up for the people of this country. I'm going to continue to do that.
Okay, that's a lie. The travel policy has been published. He just doesn't like it. Okay? And as far as I'm hurting military readiness, how on God's green earth does the Marine Corps Commandant having a fucking heart attack not hurt readiness? These men and women are working themselves to death in multiple jobs because of Tommy Tuberville. He's got this ridiculous idea. He's being fed it by some really terrible people that, generals don't really do any work. What a bunch of horse shit. I worked for a lot of them. They work long hours to run the military. And right now, we're engaged in conflict around the world. And this dipshit football coach thinks it's no big deal. Has Tommy Tuberville ever served? Not a day. Not one day. He says there's no one more military than him on the Senate Armed Service Committee, a committee that has 4 veterans on the committee. Tommy Tuberville has been told how awesome he is for his entire adult life as a shitty football coach, and he thinks he is. Thinks he's an expert. He's not.
Someone told me there are science-backed ingredients that could help me feel 15 years younger in just a matter of months. I wouldn't have believed it. Well, then I tried Qualia Senolytics. As we age, everyone accumulates senescent cells in their body. Senescent cells cause symptoms of aging, such as aches and pains, slow workout recoveries, sluggish mental and physical energy that I know so well, all associated with that middle-aged feeling. Now, also known as zombie cells, they're old and worn out and serving a no useful function for your health anymore, but they're taking up space and nutrients from our healthy cells. Much like pruning the yellow and dead leaves and plants in my garden, Qualia Senolytic removes those worn out senescent cells to allow for the rest of them to thrive in your body. You take it just 2 days a month. The formula is non-GMO, vegan, as well as gluten-free, and the ingredients are meant to complement one another, factoring in the combined effect of all the ingredients together. But best of all, on top of all that, you have a 100-day money-back guarantee. And since taking Qualia Senolytics, I have had higher energy levels. I feel 15 years younger, more productive, enthusiastic in life. Not to mention, importantly for me, less aches and pains. Now, resist aging at the cellular level. Try Qualia Senolytic. Go to neurohacker.com/Fred for up to $100 off, and then use code FRED at checkout for an additional 15% off. That's neurohacker.com/Fred for an extra 15% off of your purchase. And man, thanks Neurohacker for sponsoring our show.
Let's see what his own colleague thinks of the idea that this isn't hurting military readiness. This is Senator Dan Sullivan from Alaska.
And we're impacting readiness, and we're definitely impacting morale, and that's readiness. So again, my colleagues saying, oh, don't worry, there's no problem, no readiness problems. No offense, but that's just ridiculous. And he knows it. We all know it. So we're going to keep working this.
He knows it. We all know it. Of course it's hurting readiness. It's deeply hurting morale. Just today, got a DM from a colleague who's in the military. Several of his colleagues have decided they're probably not going to stay in. Good guys who will probably end up being flag officers. They're going to retire at 20 because this is just the start. And that's why I talk about when I say this isn't just hurting readiness today. It's hurting readiness in the next 10 to 20 years because the good guys, the good women, the good leaders, they see this manipulation of the process for politics, targeting people who have nothing to do with the political process, targeting their careers and their livelihoods. You heard what Lindsey Graham said. It's an up or out system. The longer he holds this, people are going to leave. But in the meantime, the good people watching who aren't affected, they're leaving too. You can see this Politico story. It's just, there is outrage at the Pentagon. All because of Tommy Tuberville thinks he's smarter than everybody else. But the thing is, he's being rewarded for this, okay? All the anti-abortion groups are applauding him. He's getting money. He's getting letters. He's getting articles written about how amazing he is. He just got an award from fucking Mark Meadows' fake think tank. Their first ever Courage Award for this chump. Okay? So there's a reward system in place for Tommy Tuberville to continue to damage our United States military for doing this. And it's not going away. So here's a clip that I really want to watch about the process. Here's Tommy Tuberville, I think it was in August, with Laura Ingraham, talking about how, hey, I'm just holding them the batch process. And we'll explain that process after we're done here. But he's saying they can just pass each one. Like, he's willing to do that. He's willing to work with them. Watch the clip.
Listen, I've got holds on these nominees, but they can push these nominees through one at a time. I've only got holds for groups of them at a time. I've got hold on every one of them, but they can bring them one at a time to the floor. But Chuck Schumer doesn't want to work. I mean, we've been out of session 50 days before this month, and now we're all on vacation for a month. They don't want to. They've got the floor, but they don't want to do any work with it. They want to just push these through. I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Yeah, see, it's not his fault. They've been on vacation. It's Chuck Schumer's fault. Okay, it takes 2 to 3 days per vote. So the way that it works, this unanimous consent works. Basically, there's somebody said once that 98% of the business done in the Senate is by unanimous consent. Literally, somebody said you can't even turn the lights on in the Senate if 100 senators don't agree. So the way it works is they had this simple rule. When they all agree on something, it passes. And unfortunately, this applies to a lot of things, to include batch processing of promotions. The United States military sends hundreds of promotions a month to the Congress or to the Senate to be approved. That's in the Constitution. They have to. Hundreds a month. Not just flag officers. Everybody's commissioned. Me, as a young officer commissioned in 1987, that list went before the Senate for approval. All they do is go rubber stamp. Military approved, rubber stamp. That was unanimous consent. Every promotion I got till I was a lieutenant colonel was unanimous consent through the Senate. Never held. But Tommy Tuberville is using that little rule to bend it. Here's what happened when Joni Ernst has had enough last night too. Watch Joni Ernst, who's pretty hardcore Republican. See what she has to say.
That the Senate proceed to executive session for the consideration of the following nomination. Executive Calendar number 236, Lieutenant General Gregory M. Guillot to be general. That the Senate vote on the nomination without intervening action or debate, that if confirmed, the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table, and the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action.
Is there objection?
Madam President.
The Senator from Alabama.
I object.
The objection is heard.
Madam President, if I can just address this very briefly before we move to my colleague from Indiana. I have a discharge petition that was signed at our conference lunch the other day for Lieutenant General Gregory M. Guillot. That discharge petition was signed by Senator Tuberville, meaning that Senator Tuberville believed that we should be voting on General Guillot. I was asking for a voice vote for General Guillot this evening. I'm not sure how we remedy this situation.
So that was the whole process last night. They asked for unanimous consent on each individual promotion. They go, Tubby stands up and objects. And this time, Ernst pointed out that he agreed in caucus to let these go. But what he wants is 2 to 3 days of voting. He wants to shut the Senate down from doing anything else. Look, that's the real thing here. He knows that for these 300 promotions that normally get unanimous consent, to vote on each individual one will take months. Everybody keeps yelling at me, well, Schumer should just do it. It would take months, folks. You don't understand. Each vote is days on end. You can't, they will do nothing else. Everybody goes, well, they could just stay for a weekend. No, they spent 4.5 hours on 61. All they did last night was read the bio, ask unanimous consent, object. That took 4.5 hours for 61 people. There's 300 that this shithead's sitting on. So please stop hitting me with, well, it's Schumer's fault. There are parts of this that the Democrats could do something about. We're going to get into that now. But this is the deal. Tuberville's being rewarded for this. And how's he paying his Republican colleagues back? Just today, midday on Thursday, it came out. His spokesman, Coach's spokesman, emailed anti-abortion groups encouraging them to threaten primaries against the Republicans that are trying to overturn this rule. Because here's a screenshot. There is a movement afoot amongst Democrats with Republican partners to change the rules temporarily. So instead of getting rid of completely of universal or unanimous consent, this kind of ruling, what they want to do is make a carve out for certain promotions through the end of next year, basically to clear this backlog. And they're working with all the Democrats and hopefully enough Republicans. They're going to need 60 because it will be filibustered. But that's what they're working on right now. So Tommy, Coach Tuberville's spokesman, took it upon himself, he swears in his personal role, to reach out to abortion groups to threaten those Republicans who dare do that. Those Republicans who dare to care about military readiness after the commandant of the Marine Corps had a heart attack. Going back to the beginning of this video. Okay? So, where do we stand? Here's my point. Change the fucking rules. Okay? Here's the thing. These guys in the Senate, they're immune to a lot of things. 6-year term. It's a pretty sweet life. How sweet is it? Hell, Ted Cruz runs a podcast 3 days a week. Y'all, I run my podcast. I get 1 episode a week. It's a lot of work. Not Ted, man. Ted does a podcast 3 days a week. He's getting paid to run a podcast while United States Senator. Can you imagine having such a sweet gig that you can fuck off and do a podcast for 3 days and still get paid full pay and be considered a senator? Look, the job's not that fucking hard. It's sweet, man. And they can do things like this. Change the rules. Those norms and traditions are dead in a lot of places. Those cute little rules where you had people elected who respected the norms and traditions are gone because you got people like Tommy Tuberville. And why is it dangerous? Because they're onto it. J.D. Vance yesterday just announced he's going to stop Department of Justice nominations because of the weaponization of DOJ. You've got Hawley. You've got Rand Paul. You got Ted Cruz holding ambassadorships. They're all in on it now, baby. Meanwhile, the rest of the Senate's like, well, I love my rules. I love my norms. I love my power. They love their power so much, they're willing to fuck all of us. The bottom line is our United States military doesn't have most of the leadership it needs to support our defense nationwide and worldwide because of one man and the cowardice of his peers. It's time to call your senators, demand the changes of the rules. Enough is enough. Our service members, our kids, the average age is 19 to 20, are in harm's way while Coach sits on it and lies about whether it's hurting readiness or not. Don't believe it. Don't believe the propaganda, because that's what it is. Call your senator. Seriously. I don't care what party they're from. Enough is enough. They need to hear our anger as American citizens who worry about our children. These are your kids, fathers, daughters, brothers, sisters, nephews, grandkids that are in harm's way, serving our nation, while one jackass from Alabama sits on their leadership's promotions and undermines them. And I just go back to the very beginning of this video, y'all. The Commandant of the United States Marine Corps, who's been in the military almost 40 years, is in great shape. Look at the guy. He's a warrior. Had a heart attack because the pressure of the job dealing with his jackass. Sorry if I'm angry. I don't want to seem angry. It's only because I am angry. We deserve better from our leadership. We deserve better from the Senate. And we certainly deserve better than Tommy freaking Tuberville. Get in the fight, folks. I'm Fred Wellman, host of On Democracy. I hope you watch the show every Friday night right here on the MeidasTouch Network.